4 months ago, the United States Senate and then the United States House came together to ban the app TikTok on all federal government devices, on tablets, on phones, on computers, on federal contractors and their devices as well. We acted just a few months ago with a sense of urgency because we decided that TikTok was a national security threat, a privacy threat, yes, a data threat, yes, but above all, a national security threat. And we were right to act just those few months ago. And now we must take the next step to ban TikTok nationwide to protect the security of every single American whose personal lives, whose personal data, whose personal security is in danger from the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. And it's time to act now because we've seen just in the last week the TikTok CEO come before the United States Congress and confirm that the reasons we acted 4 months ago were right and valid, and that the need at this hour is urgent. In this last week, we learned, we confirmed from the testimony of the TikTok CEO that TikTok has the ability to track Americans' data, to track Americans' location, to track Americans' personal lives, whether they want it to or not. What am I talking about? Well, TikTok tracks your keystrokes. Now think about that for a second. It's not just the videos you may upload if you have the app on your phone. It's not just the videos that you watch. It's the keystrokes that you enter, and not just while you are on the app. Oh no. It tracks your keystrokes all the time. What you're texting, what you're emailing. It tracks your contact list. It reads your phone list. We believe, based on independent third-party analysis, that it can get into email. And it does this whether or not the user consents. In fact, there's no way to turn it off. Americans are subject to this ongoing data collection at all hours of the day and night, even if they've got TikTok turned off on their phone. What else have we learned? Well, that TikTok is monitoring the location of Americans. It's not just your keystrokes, it's your location data. Where are you right now? What is it that you are doing? Where are you moving to? Are you in a car? Are you in a building? What floor are you on? TikTok can use the settings of your phone to track exactly where Americans are. And we know that they've been doing this. TikTok has been gathering this data, not just on American citizens, but also on American journalists. We know that they are able to see what journalists are saying, to see where journalists are going. New whistleblower revelations have showed that TikTok has spied on particular American journalists and tried to track them, tried to learn what they are writing, tried to control, in essence, or at least get an understanding of what their message might be. Think about this: an app on your phone that tracks your keystrokes, that reads your personal information, that tracks journalists around, that tracks your location. You can't do anything about it, and we haven't even gotten to the worst part. The worst part is all of this information is accessible to engineers based in China, accessible to the Chinese Communist Party. When he was asked about this last week, the CEO of TikTok didn't deny this espionage. No, what he said instead is, well, I don't think spying is the right way to describe it. Maybe he preferred the word surveillance. Maybe he preferred the word monitoring. Maybe he preferred the word tracking. But I actually think spying just about captures it. The problem with TikTok is not the videos on the app. The problem with TikTok is it's a backdoor for the Chinese Communist Party into the personal lives and information, into the most intimate details of every American's life. And we know the link between TikTok and the Chinese Communist Party is real, and we know that it is strong. TikTok is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese parent company, ByteDance. We know that ByteDance has Chinese Communist Party members in its senior leadership. In fact, ByteDance's editor-in-chief is a Communist Party secretary. We know the Communist Party has done trainings for TikTok and ByteDance personnel. We have video of it being done in Beijing, in China. Whistleblowers have come forward to my office and to others and given us evidence that China-based engineers are able to access Americans' personal data at any time that they want. Again, the CEO did not deny that last week. No, the links to the Chinese Communist Party are real, and they are inscribed in Chinese law. This isn't just a matter of what TikTok may want to do. No, TikTok, as a wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese parent company, is subject to Chinese law, which both the 2014 espionage law in that country and their 2017 national security law, which require the company to turn over data that the Chinese Communist Party, that Beijing may request. Under those laws, they must make Americans' data available, must make it available to Chinese communist officials. This is in addition to the CCP members who are actually senior officials in these companies, who work in these companies, who have access to Americans' data as I stand here and speak to you today. The intent of China in all of this is quite clear. They want to build a profile on every single American. We know that many of the recent data hacks of credit agencies, of other digital repositories of Americans' personal information have been carried out by Communist China. They are hungry for information about the American people. They are gathering it on everybody that they can, as much as they can, just like they do to their own citizens. And they're using the app TikTok to do it. Of course, that's not the only way that the Chinese Communist Party has tried to gather information on Americans. This is certainly not the only time that they've done it. Think about the Confucius Institutes all across the country that the CCP funded on America's college campuses. Think about the researchers that they funded and tried to place into key programs, key institutes and universities all across the country. Heaven's sakes, think about the Chinese spy balloon that just went over this country, right over my home state of Missouri just a few weeks ago, photographing everything that they could. Now, this is a pattern. The difference is, in those cases, we addressed it. We shut down the Confucius Institutes. Those who have lied about the money that they have gotten from China, the funding that they have gotten, have in some cases been prosecuted for attempted espionage on America's college campuses. And the spy balloon was belatedly shot down, but shot down at least. No, we've taken action in these other instances to protect Americans, to stop the efforts of the CCP to spy on America, to collect Americans' data, to put Americans at risk, and now we must do the same thing with TikTok. This is why President Trump, in the previous administration, tried to ban it. Well, let's not forget, this isn't the beginning of this debate. This is the end of it. We've been at this for years now. Years ago, the last administration tried to ban TikTok for all of these same national security reasons that led us as a Congress to ban it on federal devices. Oh, this has been a long time coming. There's no rush to judgment here. This is what administration after administration has concluded, that it's time to take action. Here's the real truth, that if it were the Confucius Institutes, this Chinese spy balloon, if it were some American company that was coordinating with a foreign ally, we'd shut it down immediately. And we have done in these other cases. But with TikTok, now TikTok says, oh, no, but you can't do that to us. You can't hold us accountable. We have a special carve-out. No, we have the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects us. Well, I must have missed the class in law school where we covered the First Amendment right to spy. Last time I checked my Constitution, there was no such protection. And I can be darn sure that there is no special First Amendment carve-out for communists. Now, the First Amendment may protect dance videos, sure, upload those all you want, but the First Amendment does not protect the right to spy on American citizens. It does not protect espionage. It does not protect what the Chinese Communist Party is trying to do in harvesting the data of millions of Americans. Now, TikTok has no special First Amendment carve-out. They don't get special privileges that no other entity or an American company would get. They're subject to the same rules. And when you try to spy on American citizens, when you try to use Americans' own phones as portals for collection, that ought to be stopped. You ought to be banned. And the fact that they are a China-based company shouldn't help them or hurt them. The fact is their ties to Beijing, their ties to the CCP, their ongoing efforts at espionage, and their ongoing lies, by the way, to this body. This is a company that has come before this body and lied time and time again. They said that they weren't controlled by ByteDance. Now we know they are. They said that China-based engineers couldn't access American user data. Now we know they can. They said that the CCP had no influence. And yet last week, the CEO of TikTok couldn't even confirm that the CCP hadn't helped write his talking points. Now this is an entity, this is a corporate interest that is influenced, if not controlled, by the Chinese Communist Party. The national security risks are severe and growing worse. And I haven't even talked about the materials on suicide promotion that you'll find on TikTok. I haven't talked about the risks to mental health that it may pose. And there's a reason that TikTok isn't even available in China. Did you know that? In China, TikTok isn't available. Why is that? Well, it's because Beijing isn't stupid. They know it's digital fentanyl. TikTok wasn't designed to make our lives better. TikTok is designed to addict and then to be used as a gateway into our personal lives. It's designed to addict and then to be used as a portal to spy on American citizens. Now, I tell you what, here's one thing that has changed since just December, a few months ago when we banned TikTok on federal government devices. TikTok has gone into full damage control mode. And as big tech companies do all the time, they've hired a fleet of lobbyists and have spent untold amounts of cash. I'm told that even today, TikTok lobbyists have been seen here in the building. I've no doubt that they are scurrying around right now. Maybe they're in the galleries. I just say this, that we have the opportunity today to send a message to this corporate interest that the United States Senate is not for sale, that we cannot be bought, that we cannot be purchased, we cannot be influenced by their lobbying campaign, by their corporate money, that we will instead side with the American people. We'll tell the truth about what this app is. We'll do our jobs and protect Americans. Now, some say that we ought to have a broader bill that would not actually ban TikTok, but would give new authority to the executive branch and leave it open. I don't agree with that. My view is we should act decisively to ban TikTok directly. We shouldn't give new open-ended authority to federal bureaucrats. We should target this threat specifically. That's what this bill does that we have before us today. It goes right at the problem. It bans TikTok in this country. It protects the American people, and it sends the message to Communist China that you cannot buy us. And so I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S-85 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further ask that the bill be considered ready third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection?
Madam President,
Senator from Kentucky.
reserving the right to object. There are two main reasons why we might not want to do this. The one would be the First Amendment to the Constitution. Speech is protected whether you like it or not. The second reason would be is that the Constitution actually prohibits bills of attainder. You're not allowed to have a specific bill against a person or a company. So this fails on two egregious points, pretty obvious points, and I think we ought to think about that. I think we should beware of those who peddle fear. I think we should beware of those who use fear to coax Americans to relinquish our liberties, to regulate and limit our First Amendment rights. Every accusation of data gathering that's been attributed to TikTok could also be attributed to domestic big tech companies. In fact, one of the bills they're looking at doing is broad enough that the president will be given the power to designate whatever country he sees fit to be an adversary and whatever company underneath that definition. it would basically be a limitless authority for the president to ban speech. If Republicans want to continuously lose elections for a generation, they should pass this bill to ban TikTok, a social media app used by 150 million people, primarily young Americans. This brilliant strategy comes while polls indicate that 71% of young women and men, 53% of young men voted for a Democrat candidate for Congress. Admittedly, many Democrats have joined Republicans in calling for this ban, but like most issues, the blame will stick to the Republicans more. The Republican strategy to ban TikTok comes simultaneously with GOP complaints of domestic social media companies canceling and censoring conservatives. Without a hint of irony, many of these same conservatives now rail against censorship while advocating for censorship against social media apps they worry are influenced by the Chinese. Before banning TikTok, these censors might want to discover that China already bans TikTok. Do we really want to emulate Chinese speech bans? Aren't we the ones that say it's wrong for China to ban speech, so we're going to be just like China and ban speech we're afraid of? The Vice President of FreedomWorks, John Tamney, perhaps described this situation best. Nauseating harassment of TikTok presumes Americans will be saved from Chinese authoritarianism if U.S. politicians act like Chinese authoritarians. We're going to be saved from speech if we ban it in our country. My goodness, could we think of anything more antithetical to the freedom of speech? Well, go to the app. They say, oh, the app's full of propaganda, and your young people will be dancing into communism. Well, go to the app and search for Falun Gong, the anti-communist religious sect that is persecuted in China. Go to TikTok and search for videos advocating Taiwan's independence, criticism of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Videos are all over TikTok that are critical of official Chinese positions. That's why TikTok is banned in China. Do we want to follow China's lead in banning speech? We should not let fear of communism to cause us to ignore our First Amendment protections of speech. This legislation violates not only the First Amendment of those who own TikTok, many of whom are actually Americans, not Chinese, but it also violates the First Amendment rights of the millions of young Americans who use this social media app. I ask the American people, do you want Joe Biden to be your censor? Do you want to give unlimited power to any president, regardless of party, to decide who is our adversary and which countries, and then which countries? There's not even a list of what percentage. What if the Chinese own 1% of a company or 10% of a company? One of the bills before us would allow the Department of Commerce to decide. There's 5 countries they list that are adversaries. These are big countries that have a lot of interaction with our country already. Decide which country, in addition to the 5. The Department of Commerce can designate a country as an adversary, but then they can designate a company. But there's no specific. Do the new people that are designated to be an adversary have to own 100% of the company, 50% of the company, 1% of the company? This is a crazy gift of power to one person. And I don't care which party they're in, it's a huge mistake. Doctors Muller and Farhad of Georgia Tech write, if nationalist fears about Chinese influence operations lead to a departure from American constitutional principles supporting free and open political discourse, we will have succeeded in undermining our system of government more effectively than any Chinese propaganda. Throughout the 20th century, millions of people were fed communist propaganda every day for their entire lives. And when the regimes collapsed, the people celebrated. They danced on the Berlin Wall and on the grave of communism. Have faith that our Americans are smart enough to hear bad ideas and reject those ideas. Have faith that our desire for freedom is strong enough to survive a few dance videos. Have some faith in freedom. We don't ban things that are unpopular in the United States. Our Constitution even allows a communist party. The previous speaker said, and I quote, there's no First Amendment carve-out for communists. Well, actually there is. In our society, you can be a communist. I don't advocate it. I think it's a terrible idea. And almost no Americans choose it, but there's a Communist Party here. We actually had a former CIA director who said he voted for the communist candidate in 1976. Someone I don't advise you would appoint to be the head of your CIA. But this is a free country. You can actually have terrible ideas and you can broadcast them. That's what freedom of speech is about. It's not about saying, oh, you know, I love Mother Teresa. It's not about saying things uncontroversial. It's about the ability to say things that people don't like. Have some faith in freedom. Our Constitution does protect even despicable speech, even the Communist Party. It operates today. Nobody wants to join the Communist Party, but you still can if you wish. America is a country that celebrates free expression, that cherishes free association, that is confident in the cause of liberty. If you want to address the evils of big tech, it's not the Chinese government you have to fear, but your own. In June 2021, Newsweek reported that big tech complied with 85% of government requests to hand over your personal data. So you're worried about the Chinese government? Your government has all of your data and they're sucking it up from all the big tech. So the thing is your next step to ban big tech in our country? There are some people that are promoting banning TikTok, and their next step is Facebook. This is on both sides of the aisle. This contagion is infecting the whole country, both parties. Realize that this means with 85% of government requests to big tech being honored, this means that Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, once presented with a subpoena or a warrant, routinely hands over the documents of emails, text messages, photos, documents, calendars, contact lists, and more to your government. Big tech puts up virtually no legal fight to protect your privacy. They could go to court to stop this. Instead, there's a big cable that runs from big tech to the government, and they snoop on every bit of our information. So you want to protect privacy? Why don't we start by protecting our own privacy in this country? To those who are worried that the Chinese government might somehow now have access to millions of Americans' teenage information, realize that all social media sucks up personal data that people voluntarily provide. If you're going to ban TikTok, what's next? Arguably, several domestic apps censor conservatives more than TikTok. I know this because I've been censored and I've been banned. I've had speeches on the Senate floor that are protected by the Constitution, banned and kicked off of YouTube. I despise these people, but I'm not going to vote to ban them because I realize that intellectually, in a free country, I don't have the right to tell the New York Times to publish my op-ed or YouTube to publish my speech. I don't like what they do. Quit using them. That's what happens in a free country. You don't like TikTok? Quit using them. But don't disenfranchise 150 million Americans who are using a social media app and just say, no big deal. This is the First Amendment rights of 150 million Americans. I have a host of complaints about domestic social media platforms. They cancel conservatives, but I'm not in favor of banning one of them or regulating their speech or telling them who can post and who can't post. That's what the First Amendment's about. If you don't like TikTok or Facebook or YouTube, don't use them. But don't think that any interpretation of the Constitution gives you the right to ban them. TikTok's mission appears to be, like most other companies, to make money, and lots of it. TikTok is actually cooperating with our government. There's something called the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., CFIUS, and TikTok's agreed to put all of their data in Oracle's cloud, and they have agreed to work with the U.S. government. Because they so much want to make money, they will do anything to try to get rid of this accusation that they're somehow part of the Communist Party, which is not true. It's a company that's owned, probably the majority of it, by Americans and Europeans and other Asians outside of China. Less than 50% of it's owned by any Chinese. There is no Chinese government of the American TikTok. But even that being said, they're willing to put all of it under the Oracle cloud. They're willing to have U.S. regulators be given access to this, all because they want to continue to make money. They don't want to be shut down by the censors. The First Amendment isn't necessary to protect speech that everybody accepts. The First Amendment exists to protect speech that might be unpopular or might be controversial. U.S. courts have already struck down the Trump ban on TikTok. It amazes me now that the other side that was so horrified by the idea of President Trump banning something is now jumping on board to ban it themselves. I hope saner minds will reflect on which is more dangerous, videos of teenagers dancing or the precedent of the U.S. government banning speech. For me, it's an easy answer. I will defend the Bill of Rights against all comers, even if need be from members of my own party. I object.
The objection is heard.
Madam President,
Senator from Missouri.
would the senator from Kentucky entertain a question?
I object.
No. The objection is heard.
Madam President.
Senator from Missouri.
Madam President, I have never before heard on this floor a defense of the right to spy. I didn't realize that the First Amendment contained a right to espionage. The senator from Kentucky mentions the Bill of Rights. I must have missed the right of Chinese government to spy on Americans in our Bill of Rights, because that's what we're talking about here. The senator from Kentucky can watch as many dance videos as he wants. I have no objection to that. He could watch them on this floor for all I care, fine. What I object to is the Communist Chinese Party using this app on Americans' phones to spy on Americans without their consent. The senator says that Americans can simply not use this app, just turn it off. That's not the case. If you turn it off, it continues to collect information. You don't get to consent. TikTok doesn't ask you, do you want to share your information? It takes it. It doesn't ask you for permission to track your location. It takes it. It doesn't ask you for permission to share it with the Communist Chinese Party. It just does it. That's the problem. Scour the Constitution, scour the First Amendment. I promise you, you won't find any right to espionage. You won't find any right to spy. And this novel right that the senator thinks he has discovered for Americans to be spied upon, I've never heard of such a thing in the history of this country. I'm astounded to learn that Americans have the right to be spied upon. So not only does China apparently get the right to spy in the First Amendment, Americans have the inalienable right to be spied upon and have all of their data taken from them. That apparently is democracy. That's not democracy. That is the abuse of our laws, the abuse of our economy, the abuse of our people by a foreign government for its purposes. So I say again, watch dance videos to your heart's content. But spy on Americans, that's where we have to draw the line. As to money, the senator said, and I think he's exactly right, that TikTok wants to make money, no doubt about it. And the money they are making, and the money that they are showering on this building, and it is having an effect. But in the end, the American people don't want to be treated as commodities to be bought and sold. Because make no mistake, it's the American people who are being bought and sold here by TikTok. They're being sold to the Chinese Communist Party for influence and money. They're being sold for the wishes and the whims of Beijing. And they're being lied to every step of the way.